Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the TII podcast. Tonight, we're going to preview Braga versus Rangers in the quarter final of the Europa League. That's right, I did say the quarter final of the Europa League. I'm joined tonight by Dylan Brand. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm good, mate. Still gutted with the Old Firm result, but onwards and upwards, I feel.
Excellent. And Adam Robertson, I'm joined by yourself as well. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Good to be here.
Great. It's been a busy start to April already. Not the ideal start that we wanted, but another big game is on us straight away. We're travelling to Portugal to face Braga in the first leg of the quarter final of Europa League, as we said. Now, I think when the draw was made, Braga was potentially the most favourable team that we could have asked for. They were probably looking at us thinking the exact same thing. Before I touch on Braga themselves as a team, Dylan, I'm going to come to yourself. When the draw was made, what was your reaction when we were drawn against Braga?
Yeah, I think when you kind of looked at all the teams that are still left in the Europa League, they definitely seem the most doable. Not to say that they'll be easy by any stretch of the imagination, because I feel like when you're still in this stage in the Europa League, there's not going to be any easy games. But I think just basing on our luck with Portuguese teams over the years, and just basing on the last time we played Braga, I would always say that this would have been the most favourable draw. So I was very happy with it. But again, we're still acknowledging that it'll still be a tough game for us. Yeah,
absolutely. Adam, I don't think when the draw was made that we were happy because we thought we were absolutely going to go through. I think we felt we were happy because we felt we had a 50-50 shot at going through. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, completely agree. I think it's less a sort of disrespect to Braga, if you like, as it is a testament to the quality of the other teams that were left in the competition. You look at, I mean, I know Lyon are struggling a little bit in Ligue 1 over in France, but they showed what they can do against Rangers, albeit the second game was slightly meaningless. You look at West Ham knocking out Sevilla, who've obviously got an exceptional record in this competition, and you look at Leipzig and Atalanta as well, who hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll face one of them in the semi-finals. So yeah, as Dylan says, it'll still be a difficult game, but in terms of the most favourable draw, I think it's probably the best that you could ask for at this stage.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think so. What we'll do is we'll run through our, I think, fairly limited knowledge of Braga ahead of this preview. So currently sitting fourth in Primeira Liga in Portugal, behind Porto, Sporting, and Benfica, I suppose, as you'd probably expect. They beat Benfica 3-2 on Friday night. I think that sends a wee bit of a warning or a bit of a reminder, should I say, of just how good a team they actually are, and they absolutely won't be a pushover for Rangers. We obviously played them back in 2020, the famous Yanis Hadji game. They outplayed us for pretty much 60 minutes of that game, and Yanis Hadji and a Joe Aribo masterclass kind of pulled us back into that one. And then we beat them 1-0 away with a great Ryan Kent goal as well. In terms of them playing in the Europa League this year, they finished second in Red Star Belgrade's group, which is interesting. Might be a sign of their quality, considering we played against Red Star in the last game. In that group, they were also joined by Midtjylland and Ludogorets. Out of the 6 games they played in the group, both teams scored in 5 of them. So that suggests it's going to be a pretty open game, and I don't think it's going to be a low scoring game either. I think there was over 3, bringing my betting stuff into this, but I'm going to say over 3.5 goals and pretty much all the games bar one. So that would be interesting. And in terms of the knockout side of things, they beat Sheriff Tiraspol on penalties. Sheriff obviously beat Real Madrid in the Bernabeu in the group stages of the Champions League earlier this year. And then they beat Monaco in the last round to reach this stage. In Monaco, we know are no mugs at this stage of the competition. So heading into the game now, after the defeat in the Old Firm, Adam, I'm going to come to you first. Obviously, we were happy with the draw, as we said, with giving us a 50-50 shot at going through. After our most recent performance against Celtic, how do you feel now as we head into the first leg?
I think for me, maybe this has been a bit optimistic, but because of the level of disparity between Rangers' performances in the Premiership and Europe, you have to look at them both in isolation. I mean, aside from the fact that almost every single game in the Scottish Premiership is 10 men behind the ball, apart from Celtic, and maybe at a push the likes of Hearts and Hibs, who are maybe slightly likely to be more open. So I think, obviously it's hard after what happened on Sunday, but you can only take confidence from particularly the game. The game against Dortmund is the obvious one, but Red Star as well, it's a difficult place to go. And obviously they got beat, but it's a last minute penalty that ultimately didn't mean much. I think the big thing though that you kind of touched on there is that it is worth remembering that night at Ibrox will obviously be the one that everyone remembers, but they actually played better away from home. I mean, I was there that night. Rangers played well for 20 minutes, if even that. And the crowd obviously were a huge factor that night. So, and as well, Benfica are going to play Liverpool in the Champions League on Tuesday, and that's who Braga beat at the weekend. And I know football isn't just as simple as to beat one team so that they're going to beat another, but it is a reminder of the quality that they'll have. But yeah, I still think Rangers have every right to be confident despite Sunday's result.
Dylan, would you agree with Adam there? I think I would, to be fair, in terms of you have to separate our SPFL Premiership performances from our European performances. In terms of the Premiership, it's been extremely disappointing in recent weeks and months, pretty much since the winter break. But I think in Europe, it's almost been like a bit of a lifeline for us as fans in terms of showing that we actually do still have something about us as a team.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this team is like the Olmo, Checo and Hyde team, we just kind of kick ourselves in the week, but in Europe, we just seem to fare much better. I think probably the fact that teams are much more open, that we're able to get into more spaces. We don't have to worry about breaking down the low block as much. And I think, some even players have even admitted that they enjoy playing in Europe more than they play in the week, because the expectations are not as high on them as opposed to playing against the likes of Ross County. So, yeah, I think it's quite weird because obviously we've not been good in the league, but I'm still quite confident for Thursday because I know that we've been able to pick up results in Europe. I mean, you have to just look at this season where we beat the likes of Borussia Dortmund to even get to this point. It's just outstanding. But yeah, I've got confidence. You've got more confidence playing away, and honestly, as Adam's saying, than playing at home. So yeah, I could definitely see Rangers picking up a good result on Thursday night, but then probably struggling against St. Mirren on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that was probably been a commonly held view. I think actually we've tended to struggle a wee bit, especially with the Sunday kickoffs being early doors. Adam, coming back to yourself, I think one of the major blows to Rangers, not only ahead of the Old Firm game last weekend, but also heading into these quarter final double headers. I think Alfredo Morelos been missing. He's been pivotal for us in the last 3-4 seasons in Europe, and he's been so yet again this year. I think on Sunday we saw a bit of a toothless performance from Rangers going forward, and I think Alfredo Morelos would have made a huge difference to that on Sunday. I think personally I've got a few concerns now heading into this away leg as to how we're going to play and how we're going to find that cutting edge that we really need to get a good result in Portugal. How do you feel about, firstly, Alfredo Morelos being missing, and do you think that's the difference between Rangers going through or not going through in this tie?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it'll be a huge blow. We've seen that on Sunday. The sort of lack of physical presence. We'll have touched on that on the other podcast in terms of what he could have brought to that game. I think for me, though, the only sort of saving grace is that Van Bronckhorst has shown, particularly in Europe, the sort of tactical flexibility that he has, and you have to hope that will extend to not having Morelos. And I think the other thing is that the top teams, recruitment has come under major scrutiny. The weekend only heightened it to what I think had already been kind of boiling under the surface for a lot of fans. If something were to go wrong Thursday. And I don't mean go wrong as in, they could lose the game and still play relatively well. They could lose on Thursday not through a fault of Morelos not being there. They're a good team. But if they were to lose on the basis of, say, a lack of chances, not just chances taken, chances created, general sort of build-up play, then I think it'll be a huge problem for Rangers. I think that's going to get heightened even more. So it's a huge game going forward for Rangers.
Dylan, one of the criticisms that I made of Kemar Roofe and his performance in the Old Firm game was his lack of ability to hold up the ball. I felt that he when the ball's played up to him and it's not to his feet, he shrinks a little bit. His body kind of moves in the way, which allows the defender to kind of reach around them and get to the ball and that side of things. I think Ryan Kent will obviously be an outball, as he has been for much of the performances in Europe so far. Do you think Kemar Roofe will have that ability to get us up the park and kind of hold the play up for us?
I think it just depends what the game plan is, to be honest. I think if the game plan is the same as if Alfie was playing it, then I can't really see Roofe doing much else. Just because I think it's kind of like, I don't think you can really bunt the ball up to Roofe. I think he's more of like a penalty box striker where you just have to lay it off for him and, he'll get into position, he'll drag defenders with him. Whereas, if you try to play him like Alfie now, you don't get much luck. And I think like the Old Firm's previous is kind of evidence of that I think the team kind of reached that default setting where they'll just like bund the ball up for Roofe and just hope that he can like muscle off the defender and drop deep and then link up the play. So I think if you play it like that, I can't really see it. But I think if you just switch up the game plan and be a bit more open, just don't want the ball up to him, just try and get a bit more out of players like Kent and whoever plays on the right hand side. Just get more out of them, and then hopefully they can provide a service to Roofe. But I think, honestly, it all depends on the game plan. You're just kind of hoping that Chio, as you kind of said, that he has kind of got the tactical masterclass in Europe so far. So you're kind of hoping that he can deliver on that again. But I think going off the last couple of performances when Roofe has started, I haven't got as much confidence now if I'll go to start. But again, I hope we prove you wrong for it.
Yeah, Adam, just one more question for yourself and get your thoughts on Kemar Roofe. In the Old Firm game, we know Old Firm games are a completely other level from pretty much any other game that Rangers will play in pretty much any season. The intensity is higher, the pressure is much higher, the focus it needs to be bang on. But Kemar Roofe didn't quite turn up as we hoped he would on Sunday. Do you think the potential of a game being more open? We obviously mentioned earlier on that in Braga's group games, both teams scored in 5 out of the 6, which suggests they're quite open and attacking as a team. Do you think that will work to Kemar Roofe's advantage and allow us to kind of play through him and out wide to guys like Kent and potentially either Haribo or Sakala?
I think, oddly, it's a strange one because I think that Roofe is so suited to, you've seen it against Aberdeen recently, and even against Dundee last week, not the cup game, the league game that they won 2-1. He's very well suited to, if teams are sitting deep. I think that was part of the disappointment in the Old Firm, is that Celtic were pushed back, and he's so good at finding those little bits of space, and he sadly just wasn't up to it on Sunday for whatever reason. He wasn't the only one. And I know we'll come on to it in a minute, but I think Sakala and Kent are going to be the real key men here. Obviously, Roofe can still have a part to play, and I would imagine that he will start, fitness pending. I know he's had his fitness issues. But yeah, whether he's sort of going to be the difference maker, and it's certainly in the same way that Alfredo Morelos wasn't. If you're talking about who is really going to step up and not assume the role in a tactical sense, but in a sense of really make the difference in the team, I don't think that falls on Roofe, and that's not a criticism of Roofe. I just don't think that's his game, really.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I think if we continue to try and play as though Alfredo Morelos was playing, but there's just someone different in his place, I don't think that's going to work for us going forward. We always need to adapt the tactics to suit Roofe's game. and whether that is rather than playing a 4-3-3 without going too much detail into the different machinations of the tactics, whether we move 3 number 10s effectively behind Roof and try and build up the play that way. That might be a potential option to try and get the ball into his feet a bit more. But I personally don't really see Gio making that change, especially heading into Thursday night. Dylan, coming to yourself, looking at the first leg, obviously away goals isn't a thing anymore in Europe. What do you feel would be a good result, or what result should we be aiming for? Obviously, you'd want a 5-0 win, but if we're being realistic, what would be a good result for Rangers heading back to Ibrox?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because I think when I'm doing my research, I've noticed that Braga have been undefeated at home in Europe this season. And it seems that for the games to manage to get through in the knockout rounds, it mostly came from home matches. So they lost 2-0 against Sheriff in the away leg, but it managed to win 2-0 at home and then win on penalties. I think I can't remember the more goal score, but I think they more or less did all the work in the home leg, and then they were able to go fine in the away leg. So I think, again, it's quite simple, really. I'm just kind of looking at it on paper, but I think it does appear that they sort of turn it up when they're at home and then not so much when they're away. So I think if we're able to at least get a draw, I think that'll be favourable. Even keep it to 0-0. And if we can win 1 or 2-0, even better. But I think as long as we can keep it tight in the away leg and then take it back home, I think we've got a real chance to make it to the semis.
Yeah, Adam, it's an amazing stadium they've got out in Braga. It's one of the most iconic stadiums in Europe, I think. Obviously built for Euro 2004 when it was in Portugal. I think one thing that the Braga potentially haven't experienced, and I know Dylan highlighted how good their form is at home in Europe. I think one thing potentially they haven't experienced will be the number of away fans that are descending on the ground. I think the vast majority of people you see on Twitter seem to be heading to Braga one way or another. I think there's a few 5 and 6 stop trips on the way, trying to make their way there for a decent price. Do you think that will make a difference in the game, or do you think that Braga's form will be as Dylan said, they'll probably be better at home to try and gain that advantage heading into the away leg?
Yeah, well, I mean, as Dylan says, the home record speaks for itself. But I've seen next to none of Braga since the previous tie. But I think for them at home with their home record, the away fans, yes, they're not used to it, but it probably won't have the same difference as, for example, Ibrox will. And I mean, you hate to oversimplify sort of football sometimes, especially now, but that night at Ibrox, the 3-2, I mean, they had no idea what hit them when that Yanis Hadji goal went in. I mean, I don't know if you were there, lads, but
yeah,
I mean, it was. I've never ever, and I watch a lot of football, and I've never seen a team react to an atmosphere like that. I mean, obviously, when you concede, you're away from home, especially if you're 2-0 up. It's only natural that a bit of nerve set in, but I mean, they did not ride that storm at all. And if, as Dylan says, if Rangers can get a draw and get back to Ibrox, I mean, they've clearly evolved as a team. They're in the quarterfinals. That was the last 32. So clearly someone's changed. I know they've had a relatively straightforward route to the final, to the quarterfinal, excuse me. But if they can get back with a draw, which I think they will, if I'm honest, and then Ibrox sort of recreates the atmosphere that we know it can, then yeah, I think they've got a huge chance to get to the semi-finals.
Yeah, I think a lot, and obviously you look back at the most recent game when you start to look at lineups and score predictions and that side of things. I think a lot depends on what Rangers turns up. If it's the Rangers from the first 5 minutes against Celtic, then you'd be very confident of us going through. If it's the Rangers for the rest of the game, then you'd probably go the other way. I think if we have a look at lineup predictions, and Adam, I'm going to come back to you first of all for your prediction. I think some of the question marks that came out of the Old Firm game, particularly on Joe Aribo, was one that seems to have had quite a bit of criticism. Alan McGregor as well. I don't see him being switched out at this stage of the competition, if I'm being honest. And then I was probably a wee bit of a question mark over Aaron Ramsey's fitness as well. He looked like he was really struggling after 60 minutes or so yesterday. How do you see us lining up for the game on Thursday?
Yeah, I completely agree about Alan McGregor. Obviously, I don't think he's going to drop him at this stage. Joe Rebo's a difficult one, but if Sunday's performance is anything to go by, I think he probably will drop out. Probably for our field, Aaron Ramsey is a bit of a shame, because if Aaron Ramsey is fully fit, I really don't believe that he's coming off in that game on Sunday, unless Gio's looking ahead. But when you're 2-1 down, you can't be thinking like that, So if they were 3-0 up, yeah, get him off. But that wasn't the situation. So he's clearly not quite there yet in terms of fitness. I think for me, the big one is Sakala. I thought Sakala made quite a big difference on Sunday, if I'm honest. I thought he stretched the play a bit, and, I know they kept putting crosses in, but he can get in behind folk. And I think that he is a key player. I quite like Sakala. I feel a little bit for him, to be honest. I think, the sign of any good striker is consistency. And, I don't watch the players in training every day. Obviously, I'm not the manager, but he's not really had that chance to go on a run. And if you look at his stats from when he starts games, they're quite good. I mean, I know he scored about 5 goals against Motherwell, but I think he for me really is the key one. And I think, to be honest, his performance on Sunday, okay, they get beat and that's all that will be remembered, but I think he probably merits a start.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting, Dylan. Just before I come to you, I'll kind of outline where I think the team will be, and you can tell me agree, disagree, and who you think will be in. So I think Alan McGregor in goals, obviously, James Tavernier right back, Connor Goldson, Leon Balogun, Calvin Bassey. As much as the defence has been criticised and we've had a sort of pattern of individual errors being made, I don't think we have anyone else really that's going to come in to mix that up. I think Lundstrom and Jack will obviously play in midfield. I think that's a given. I have a feeling that he's going to play Glenn Kamara, if I'm being honest, and kind of mirror how he set up against Dortmund from that perspective. Kamara offers a wee bit of defensive solidity despite being slightly further forward, but he's also shown I think an ability that I'm not sure many of us realised he had in terms of getting beyond the striker, and being able to score a goal. I mean, it feels like for years I've been shouting on him to shoot from the edge of the box, and he constantly refuses. So I think Glenn Kamara might come in place of Ramsey, if I'm being honest. But Adam, I heard your thoughts on Arfield potentially coming into that position, and that's obviously a legitimate claim as well. And like you say, I don't think they can justify Joe Aribo starting on Thursday after the performance on Sunday. As much as we want the Joe Aribo back from the first half of the season, he doesn't seem to be coming back anytime soon. So I think you have to play on current form. And like you, I'm a fan of Sakala, and I would like to see more of him, especially in games where defences are sort of sitting back. He seems to be able to get to the byline even against defences like that. But I think if you're a Braga defence and you see Ryan Kent down one wing and Fashion Sakala down another, then they're going to be a bit scared as to what's coming at you, especially on the counter attack, if that's how we continue to play. And then I think Kamara Roof obviously in the middle. I don't see kind of Cedric Kitten's the only other option that could potentially come in. He's so far out of the thought process of Gio and his team that I don't see him coming in. Dylan, what do you think of that 11? Would you agree with that? Do you see a space potentially for someone like Alex Lowry to come in rather than Fashion Sakala, or Alex Lowry potentially playing in that 10 role where I've suggested Glenn Kamara?
Yeah, I don't think I've really been disagreeing much with the lineup you have there, Greg. I wouldn't really thought out. So I think it's just too big a game. I think safe to say for me the league season's over, and I think we have to turn attention to Europa League and the Scottish Cup now. I think especially the Europa League, I think if we make it to the semi-finals, we could potentially secure a playoff spot for the Champions League next season. Again, I'm not sure if that's 100% accurate, but still, even if it's not, then still you think of the money that we can generate from all those games, and I can go towards like the rebuild for the summer. So, yeah, I think to be honest, the only real question mark is kind of like the third midfielder. So I totally agree with you with Lundstrom and Jack. This is a setback, although they can go for a wee bit. But I think I'm with you where I probably would want to play Quinn Kamara kind of in a number 10 position, because that way we're on the game. Hopefully he can sit back more and then we can soak up pressure that way. But he has demonstrated that he can play in a position. He has got a couple of goals. He does have the technical ability as well, and hopefully we can see him more in a position. But I'm with you. I think Sakala should get a chance. I don't think he's really set much foot wrong. I think the one thing he can take away from his effort, like he will constantly try his hardest throughout the 90, which you can't really say the same for the likes of Aribo and many other players. So yeah, I think, to be honest, that's my preferred 11. Like what, as you said, Greg, that would be my preferred 11 going on Thursday night. And even if Alex Larry doesn't play, hopefully he can get some minutes in the week. But right now, our priority is the Scottish Cup and Europa League at this point.
Yeah, Adam, just picking up a point Dylan raised there, actually. There was a rumour came out, I believe, earlier on today that basically if we were to knock Braga out, we would secure a seeded playoff spot in the Champions League qualifiers next year. So we'd still have to play in the third round of qualification, but where we are seeded no matter what. But we would also be seeded for the playoff round, which I think could make a big difference. It's a bit strange talking about next season when you're still doing this season, but that seems like it would be quite an important step for us if we're hoping, if we do go on to finish second in the league, and we're hoping to still qualify for the Champions League.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be massive, but at the same time, I think it would be another natural progression, the way that Rangers have played in Europe since Steven Gerrard's first season, really. And I think as well, someone that's just worth remembering is that historically, like Chelsea in 2012 is one that sticks out, and Liverpool in 2005, maybe just teams that maybe aren't the best in the league can sometimes just be built for Europe in a sense, or not even necessarily built for it, but they just, Rangers have just had so many good results that when you go into Europe and you think in this competition beat Borussia Dortmund, whereas when they played Celtic, they must have been thinking, we've struggled against Aberdeen, Livingston, Ross County. It must, it's not faulting the players' efforts, it's human nature. So I think they've got every reason to believe, and as you say, if they can get a seeded spot, obviously it remains to be seen, like you say, next season, what teams across Europe that could entail as playing. But no, yeah, I've got every faith that they can definitely pick up a result and hopefully, secure just another step. But hopefully they just win it and then get into the group stage. That's the ideal. That's really the idea. That's the ideal world.
Absolutely, that would be much easier. I think that one if I could. The last thing I think we're going to, before we finish off tonight on the podcast, I think the last thing we'll do is just have a wee go a score prediction. Dylan, I'm going to come to you first and get your thoughts. How do you think the game will pan out on Thursday night?
Yeah, very difficult. I think Braga will be bang up for it. I think they haven't really got much to lose. I think in their week they're quite comfortable in fourth. That's probably where they'll finish. I think it will be end-to-end type stuff. I think I might go for a 2-1 win for us.
2-1 win for us. I'd absolutely take that. Adam, what's your thoughts on the scoreline for Thursday?
I'll go for a 1-1 away in Europe. That's a classic, really. That would do to take back home, I think.
I'm going to go for another nerve-shredding game of a 2-each draw on Thursday night. So fingers crossed. All that's left for me to do is to thank both Adam and Dylan for joining me. Adam, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And Dylan, thank you very much again for coming on.
A pleasure as always.
That's perfect. So Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. All that's left for me to do is to remind you to subscribe to the TII podcast channel on YouTube and to remember to turn on notifications so you get an email every time a new upload is put on our YouTube channel. Here's hoping for another Rangers win on Thursday night in Europe. Until then, goodbye.